Okay, I'll have everyone quiet down, and as we get started with calling the August 22nd Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting to order. I understand we have Graham online. Is there a way to see?
I am here.
Oh, great. The first thing we have on the agenda today is our consent agenda, which includes the minutes from July 25th, 2023 Board of Waterworks Trustees meeting, the minutes from the August 1st, 2023 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and the minutes of August 8th, 2023 Planning Committee meeting. The financial statements, the list of payments for July 2023, a summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of $20,000, and our next meeting date of September 26th, 2023. Ted, is there anything you want to call out about those items?
Andrea, I would just point out that there is a CEO approved expenditure above $20,000, which normally isn't. There is a $137,000 expense related to the LP ASR well. We talked about that in December. They worked on it through the spring and got it up and running. What I think is our last payment.
Anybody else have any questions or things you want to pull out on the consent agenda? I move the consent agenda. Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign.
Aye.
I'm going to assume that was an approval, Graham, for the. I moved a little quicker than I think you came through.
That's fine. Yes, I approve.
Okay, great. Moving on into our public comment period. I understand we have Jeff, right? Reese, joining us. If you would come up to the podium and give us your name and
wrote it down because I wanted to stay in the 5-minute limit, and I'm just going to touch on some bases. And at the end, after the meeting's over, if you guys want to talk to me, I'll be out in the forum there. So if you wanted to talk to me in more detail about things, anyway. Can you hear me now? Okay. My name is Jeff Reese. I live in Pro, Iowa. I've been with the Des Moines Waterworks for 36 plus years, in addition to 12 years experience in construction prior. There are several issues that I would like to address in short amount of time, and I ask that you deem these issues as critical as I do. That you please come to me after the meeting, board meeting, and I can discuss more in detail. During my years at Des Moines Waterworks, I've held many different positions in pipelines, leak detection, and now grounds as an operator. I have been hardworking, honest, dependable, dedicated, loyal employee. During the course of my time, my body, especially my knees, have taken a brunt of it. There are several issues that were dealt with through HR, work comp, that were, I felt, unethical and not within the EOE guidelines, therefore causing me undue stress, both physical and financial, and diminishing my way of life, for limited me in many ways. These issues are from the past and most recently began at the end of January 23. They are still unresolved. All matters concerning the above have been addressed with several levels of the company and are valid, along with documentation and proof of the validation. When I began my career here, it was a very productive. Sorry?
It's just feedback.
Okay. When I began my year here, I was very productive, honest, stage work, with mentions of jobs well done, genuine positivity throughout. As years went by, through several changes of CEOs, management, and employees, with each new change of the guard and the honesty, production, dedication, accolades, positivity began to deteriorate. I witnessed it, but I still held to my morals and attitude of an honest day's work. I'm very experienced in what I do. I am one of the most qualified, tenured individuals in the field of expertise. I am level-headed, honest, and willing to share my knowledge to any and all who needed it. And with each new employee, it seemed the experience had declined dramatically and quite frankly in a dangerous way, and a change is vital. Prior to my leaving pipelines due to the wear and tear of my body, I addressed the issues that were very evident and in need of attention. I voiced a plan of action offering my expertise and resources to provide assistance to pipeline as a qualified tenured individual to train and teach new and old employees in all the aspects of operation procedures according to the OSHA and DMW guidelines. I have given a full assessment of the problem and details on how the department could benefit from my assistance in order to retain employees and create a safer, more effective work experience. I was turned down with the comment, "We don't need that to do that." However, almost a year into my time in grounds, I was approached about my plan of action after several meetings to explain that what I would offer up, to which I have every confidence that I could remedy the lack of mortality, or lack of training, safety issues, and retention of employees. Job was created for a position that paled in comparison in what I had said and what I would do, and the job description laid out. Ultimately, I turned down the job offer due to not meeting the expectations of my proposal and salary. I feel the job was filled by an unqualified, untenured employee to please the board, therefore placing a Band-Aid on a huge wound. Tell me, how does this add up to our motto, water you can trust for life? When we have an inexperienced, untrained, low productive, safety issues, and poor work ethics due to lack of guidance. And on this issue of water we can trust, throughout my career with the waterworks, there have been many times that I have brought issues of importance to my supervisors that were detrimental to our water quality. Some issues were dealt with and some were put aside until it would continue to press the issue. Offered up remedy is not just a short-term fix. I will be available. Well, I think I missed something, but anyway, I will be available afterwards to elaborate on what I'm trying to say. And I'm not used to speaking in front of a forum. You can probably understand that. But lastly, I wanted to touch on a recent injustice of the increasing grades and wages for pipelines department. Failure, and one of the injustice was operators. There's 8 operators within the Des Moines Waterworks, 2 which are in grounds and the other 6 in pipelines. The 2 in grounds does everything to help out every department, and we help out engineering on projects, we help out water production and all their needs. We help out pipelines when main breaks get too excessive and they need relief and they need help. We go dig for them as well. But when they did this, they didn't include us in any kind of pay or increase. They said we're grounds operators. We're not waterworks operators, we're groundwater. Pipelines is different. So I just felt that was a great injustice. And I requested a copy of the comparables they did when they were supposed to be doing, when they did pipelines for the grade increase. And I got a copy of it. I want to leave it with one of you guys and you can make copies and look at it, but you'll understand what I was talking about when you see this. And I didn't get the other 3, but I'm still working on it. I had to go through Laura Sarcone to get it. Because when I asked Doug, he said they weren't giving it out to anybody. And I guess the union requested it, a couple other employees had requested it as well prior to, and they have not gotten it. This is the first form that I received since then, and it's just on the operators. So,
If that's something that you would like to leave with me, I take it over there. Jeff, I do appreciate you, thank you. Can you go back up? There might be some questions. I do appreciate you having, taken up the matters that you've discussed with your supervisors and coming to TED and following the process to come before us today and share this information, and also being informed with, the process and the way things work here with the 5-minute limit. It means a lot to us to have people kind of respect that and follow that. And I appreciate you sharing this information with us and taking the time to get up in front of at the podium and speak in front of all of us. As you can tell, I also don't enjoy speaking in front of a lot of people. But you've touched on a lot of issues, and I know this is a policy making board. And so from a policy standpoint, I'm not sure what our next move is, but I think I turned to John to kind of ask him if he has any suggestions.
So, legal counsel of the board, Mr. Reese, I'm sure you're aware, the union has got a collective bargaining agreement with the utility. A number of the issues that you touched on are covered by the collective bargaining agreement. There is a procedure within the collective bargaining agreement for bringing matters to the attention both of management, and then if the resolution of those issues is not satisfactory to the employee covered by the CBA, there is a grievance process that can be followed to try to adjudicate a resolution of that issue. And so in terms of action for the board on any particular issue that was raised during that comment section, I think it'd be most appropriate to refer that back to your union representation, talk to them, and talk about the procedures available in the collective bargaining agreement for trying to resolve any concerns or issues you don't think have been satisfactorily resolved. So,
is that something that you've done with? I took some notes here
okay,
regarding.
here's what I gotta say to what you did. This was opened up by the Des Moines Water Works, the management team. It was not a request by the employees to do what they done. So it ain't a bargaining issue. They just had to sign off what they had done.
In regard to the
Change in wages.
of the wages.
Right. Right.
But the HR and other issues with is that something that you have any conversations with your union representation on?
They ran into the same problems. To me, what this all led up to was to try to pacify the board that we got everything under control down there and everything's hunky-dory, and it's not.
Dan, did you think?
And I know that's pretty big that you don't understand what I'm talking about, but you would if you listened. Because there's been a lot of great injustices done over the past that I feel that the board's never really been told the truth over.
I like shoot this week. That I want to say, pop your ass.
Mr. Reese, I'm sorry that I'm not there.
Do anything that makes you smile.
Who's ever on that Samsung phone is talking. But Mr. Reese, this is Graham Gillette, and I'm sorry I'm not in the room, and I'd like to talk to you when I'm back in Des Moines at some point. But following what our legal counsel has said, I have to agree. You've given us great generalities today, and I think we need some specifics to decide even what to do here. And I think there's a process to work through your union representatives and Des Moines Waterworks staff to resolve some of these issues. Having dealt very closely with union representatives, Bill Blubaugh and others to discuss the salary things. It's a little unfair to say that this wasn't a union issue. Salaries and turnover in the departments in Des Moines Waterworks were of great concern to the union representatives and to the board. And that's why this study was commissioned in the first place. It's not exactly fair to say that this wasn't a union issue. Your union leadership brought that to management, and there was action taken on it. And they were kept fully informed of that process all along. On these other issues that you mentioned, there's not much we can do. You've given us, generalities and some opinions on matters. If you have some issues that you need to file, I urge you to talk to your union representatives and work through that process. My experience is they're willing and able to talk to you and work on all of these things. And if that fails, and working with HR at Des Moines Waterworks fails, there are other routes for you to act. But if you want to come directly to the board like you have today, you're going to need to present us with some specifics.
I give some there, and I think that's just the tip of the iceberg, but supposedly there's more to come. And I got other things that I have that are documented as well, but with this shorter time, I don't know how this all works. You just kind of outlined it for me, and I appreciate it, but a lot of this stuff has been through the union and different things, so my thing is just that I wish that, another thing I didn't really hit on, and I wished I would have, is that this board would meet with the employees that have concerns within this company that don't get addressed, and things that get unresolved. And they don't want to speak out because they feel fear of retribution and things of that nature. I don't know if you guys could set up something where you could meet with them prior to your meetings, where management wouldn't be in and employees could feel, able to come in and speak to you on things. Because I think there's a lot that you don't know, that it goes unsaid. You hear what
Mr.
I want you to hear.
Mr. Reese, are you suggesting that the union representatives are not communicating clearly with the board and the management?
I don't think all of the matters and issues come up to surface or get addressed or handled. Yes.
Following one of our previous meetings, we did kind of try to address that with creating an opportunity for us to meet with Bill and Dee, Graham and myself and Ted to be able to identify things that were causing concerns. And that was actually one of the places where that comp study came out of, was an attempt to address something that was brought to us by your union representatives. So I at this point where we're at, I believe that what John has shared and following that process is probably your best course of action with the information that we have in front of us as the policy board that we are. But I do appreciate you sharing this, and if I'm understanding correctly, this is documentation to address the wage and grade.
It came from Doug, that was presented to Kyle and Ted
Okay.
and whoever else was in the decision making of that process. And if you look at it, basically our current pay scale was a grade 6, and at the pay scale that we're at, it was pretty much in line. So we end up changing every position in there, giving them a pay raise that was above and beyond what that tells to say.
Well,
Not that I'm saying that the comparisons were right that they used.
right. Well, I, having seen this for the first time, we'll take, we'll look at it, but I think that to probably get the quickest course of action, I would check in with Bill and Dee and your union representatives and see the process that we can go through to have them bring this to to management to review and go from there.
Like I said, there's a lot more than what meets the eye here. So, and as you can see, there's a lot of people here with different concerns and stuff that would like to see some changes take place here. as well.
I don't know. I think we have to proceed under this process. I don't know, but I'm frustrated. And I'm concerned that you stand up there and use words like unethical and offered a job to an unqualified individual and that things were done to please the board and making allegations like that.
I don't feel that they're allegations, ma'am.
Without giving us the background. This, I do have just a couple questions. One was the training job. Were you not offered the training job?
I was offered a training job for less money than when I left pipelines, and I'd be
So
training,
you were not offered the training job and the salary that you felt.
right, nor given the authority that it needed to correct the problem.
So the second question that I have, do you have an opportunity to return to pipelines as an operator?
I don't want to go back there as an operator. I don't even want to go back to that department now.
And even with the salary differential?
No, ma'am.
So, yeah, I think we're in the public comment section, just a reminder where we're at. So, in terms of this public comment, we're about 15 minutes so far. So.
Well, Jeff, thank you again for
Thank you, guys.
coming and speaking today. I understand that we have another individual that has given us notice that they would like to speak. It's Todd. Josh.
We don't know if Josh wants to speak or Todd wants to speak. So
Just make sure to say your name and where you live. Is that on the sheet? Name and address on the sheet there.
My name is Todd Copley. I live at 6800 Southeast 30th here in Des Moines. I'm the president of AFSCME Council 61, and our union represents the employees here at Waterworks. It was brought to my attention late last week, early this week, by the union representative, Bill Bluebaugh, about a situation involving Josh here. And I could try and explain everything that Josh has told me. I wouldn't do it nearly the justice that I feel Josh could do. So without any ado, I'd like to let Josh have an opportunity to speak on behalf of the situation that he's in.
It's Josh Rachi, live at 201 West State Street, Colfax, Iowa. I hold the position of crew leader here at Des Moines Waterworks, approaching 7.5 years of service. The Monday following Father's Day weekend, I was in a pretty bad wreck. I was only gone a week from work. Within, I'd say 3 days after being back at work, I came back to work in a cast, came back to work, right back to on-call. You're on call 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. You go off call at 7 a.m. the following Monday morning. My first day back at work, within my first 90 minutes, I have 6 employees reach out to me. That 2 employees from the shop came out to me when I was getting tools to go to a job, and I had to use a different vehicle because I crashed mine. They came out and spoke to me and they said, "Hey, look, they're saying this is your fault." I said, "Excuse me." He said, "Our supervisor came out and during our morning meeting and our morning stretch, he is saying that this is driver error." Okay, thank you. I got my stuff, moved on. Within the next 60 minutes, I had 3 people from grounds tell me that an individual, the head of safety, went down there and talked about this incident and painted a picture as of it to being my fault. This is all before the accident investigation. At the accident investigation, for the people that were in that room, this was brought up towards the end of that meeting. At the end of that accident investigation where I named these people, I named what they did, when they did it, how many witnesses I had to them doing it, the safety individual went back down to grounds and did it again. Now, they didn't go after my vehicle. They didn't try and burn down my house. They went after my last name and drug it through the mud. I did get a letter via email clearing me of any wrongdoing. And 2 days after the accident investigation, I got it from word of mouth. I got a call from my direct supervisor saying I was cleared. I had another employee tell me that it was still under investigation, hasn't been closed out yet. So there has been a lot of muddy, murky waters about the whole situation. Last Friday, I had a meeting with Ted, and I explained my concerns. And I believe the question was asked what I want to come out of this. I simply proposed, I said, I tell you what, you come back to me with a proposal of how this is going to happen. Now, like I said, they're not taking away my pay. They're taking away what I've done here for 7.5 years. That's not okay. That's not okay to happen to anybody. I don't care if you have 6 hours on the job. You don't go and destroy someone's last name. I went to my first PT this morning. After that PT, I got a call saying that there will be a third party private investigator looking at this situation. And that will start tomorrow. And all of these witnesses that I have that witnessed this gave me signed statements that they were there and they heard these statements. Now, the question might be asked why these people came to me and told me. Well, my question is, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they come and tell me? I bring this to this board. I don't want it to happen to anybody else. I don't think anybody else deserves it. If you guys have any questions for me, willing to answer them.
Thank you again for coming and speaking to us, and again providing the heads up to us that you were wanting to come and share these comments with us. I guess I'll open it up to my board members here if they have any questions.
I do, Andrea.
Jesus.
We're just glad you're okay.
Yes,
I'm glad you were participating.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Graham.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Copley, does Mr. Swihart still report to you?
He does, he's on vacation.
I asked because your predecessor came to our board, I guess, earlier this year, and we had a lot of discussions with him and started this working group with Mr. Swihart and our union members, our union leadership here at Des Moines Waterworks. And we've had a number of meetings, which I've been a part of. At our last meeting, we discussed this issue and possible next steps. And I'm a little, and I thought we were kind of working on those next steps. I'm a little surprised to see you here today because I thought we had a good working relationship with Mr. Swihart and your staff to work on these issues. Am I missing something?
Absolutely not. Adam, again, is on vacation and
Can you come to the mic so we can pick up?
sure, absolutely not. The relationship is still the way it was before I got here. Adam is on vacation and he would have got called down here if it wasn't for that. So he probably would have reached out to you. He's not available. So that's why I'm here.
Well, as I say, I'm concerned because we talked about this at our last meeting, and we agreed that we'd look into this and we'd continue to work on it. And I thought we were doing that. Has something happened that I'm missing here? That made you come to this meeting? Are we not working on it like we agreed to in our working group?
I think that Josh wanted more so to bring this to the attention of the board, the situation. Again, he's cleared of the accident. This isn't about the accident. It's his integrity is being questioned more than anything.
Right.
I understand, and that's what we discussed in this working group. I just, and forgive my frustration, but I've spent quite a few hours, and so have other people in this working group, in having these meetings. And I kind of feel like maybe those meetings are pointless if you're just going to show up at our meeting to talk about the things that we're working on and make it sound like we're not, concerned or working on these issues.
I never once said
I
that.
feel like you've pulled the rug out from underneath us.
By showing up at a meeting and just introducing Josh so he can talk about his concerns.
Yes, because your employee, Adam Swihart, and the union representatives have been working with us directly on this issue and Josh's concerns. And we agreed that we would work on them and that we also were concerned about them. And you're showing up today makes it sound like we haven't done anything and that we have, and this is the first that we've heard of it, and that we should be doing more of it.
Well, like I said, I am here to introduce Josh so he can have an opportunity to say what he has to say. Nothing more.
Do you encourage us to continue to work with Mr. Swihart in this small
100%.
group, or should we work with you, or should we work with you directly?
Adam is the union representative for these employees. That's Adam's job. Adam's job would be here today if he was not on vacation.
Has he kept you informed of our meetings?
To an extent, sure. I don't feel that I have to babysit Adam.
So,
Well, I'm going to stop talking about this because, I think we have to have a further conversation, but
I'm
I
at the building
was
every
really
day.
under
You
the
can reach out to
impression,
me anytime you want.
I'd love to do that. I would love, I was under the impression that we were making good progress with this group.
I never once thought we
And-
weren't.
Okay. I guess your presence here today gave me another impression, and we can go back and fix it.
I would love to sit back and anytime you want to meet. I'll give them my card. I thought I gave you one the very first time we came here. If not, I'll reach out to you.
And you are welcome to attend our next small group meeting.
Would love to.
I appreciate, again, it's not easy to come into this room and stand at the podium and share your comments in a public comment session. So I appreciate Josh and Todd, you coming by. But I do, and certainly there is more to talk about from what Graham just brought up in kind of our working group. And we'll continue that conversation offline. But thank you again for being here and for sharing your information. And we will, those are the two items or two folks that I knew were coming to share public comment. And so our next public comment item was regional governance.
Andrea, from a regional governance perspective, we continue to make progress towards finalizing the 2080 agreement. I would say we're working on final details. We have a few items that we're working with other folks, other organizations to get information from. One of the keys here is our territory transfer resolution. We need asset transfer information from the other producing communities, a handful of things like that. We have a few items that we're continuing to edit, but we are moving in the direction of having a third draft of the agreement ready in September. That's our goal.
Ted, could you move a microphone a little closer to you? Thank you.
How's that, Graham? Is that better?
That's much better. Much.
So we continue to work on the agreement. We also continue to meet with communities who are interested, primarily with the producers we've met with Polk City and Altoona, both of whom are potential producers. We have a meeting with Grimes this week. We have another meeting with Altoona on Monday to help them understand exactly what the requirements and expectations are for being a producer as part of this proposed organization. We're getting down to kind of the final strokes of that agreement, the final details. And so we're going to look at bringing that agreement to the board in September for final review, the third draft before it goes out. It's not going to be a 100% draft because after the third draft, we will ask the communities to indicate whether they're going to participate or they're not going to participate. Then there'll be a final draft with all the final financial information and whatnot. We have two options in terms of presenting to the board. We can have a presentation to the board at our September board meeting, or we may want to consider having a workshop on the Tuesday before the board meeting. We'll have to coordinate schedules and see if that's something that we could do. If we can get the agreement ready by mid-September, have the workshop, issue the agreement that week of the 23rd, I believe it is. And then that should put us in a position to have public meetings late in the month and move forward with asking communities to respond in October or November, finalizing the agreement and being prepared to sign by the end of the year. So that's kind of the track we're on. We're getting very close, still making progress, but the final steps seem to be the hardest steps.
But a light at the end of the tunnel for all the work that everyone has put into this.
I would say there's a light. I hope it's not a train.
I do hope we can have a special meeting because I believe the plan that West Des Moines has is they want to have their public meeting on the 28th of September. So the sooner we can get that in everyone's hands, the better. So were you thinking of doing it in conjunction with
I was thinking the third Tuesday, Sue, is that
19th?
Yeah. Third Tuesday of September is the day that we were looking at possibly. Give us more time too, as opposed to trying to do it at the regular board meeting.
A question, Tad. I know that West Des Moines is tentatively scheduled their public meeting, and they can't do that until we get that third draft down.
Right.
But I am interested, we have retained someone to help us with the public piece of this. Have we not?
Well, public communication, we had retained Wickstead, and they helped us early on in the process, but they're no longer working with us, but they would certainly be available to work with us again. At that point in the process, the other communities, specifically West Des Moines and Urbandale, were not prepared to say they were on board and they were supportive, and so that actually turned into a lot of internal communication and some preparation, but we don't have anyone currently on board. We have all the information that they provided, but their contract is complete.
So if we're going to do these public meetings, I mean, think that that's a month from now, when are we gonna start planning for that and see what those plans are for taking that out, what information we're gonna provide and like media kinds of things we're gonna do?
Yeah, we will start planning for that now, basically, if everyone agrees with that schedule. We have to get commitment from Urbandale and West Des Moines that they're comfortable with completing the draft by the middle of September and issuing it that week of September. I'm thinking we would target issuing it week of September 25th. And they're talking about having their public meeting 28th. Is that all appropriate timing? And then if we all agree on the schedule, then we can start to plan.
Are we, I mean, as far as public communication, is it all being, the three of us coordinating and using the same plan?
That's been the discussion thus far, is that we would try to have a coordinated plan. We did work with Wickstead to come up with some coordinated materials and talking points. We've also talked about coordinating the timing of public meetings.
I mean, yeah, we talked about the public meetings and the, you know, press release and all of those things, but just wanted to make sure that what happens in most public meetings and how those public meetings are run and the information that comes out.
Yeah, and you know, we had 2 public meetings early that weren't well attended, and so our goal is try to publicize those more so that individuals who are interested can get there. But our intent would be to run them very much in the same way, where we have, I don't know if you've been to DOT public hearings where they have kind of a distributed presentation. People can go to different stations and learn about various aspects of the project, be it assets or financial or governance or what have you. That's the way we had it set up the last time. That would be the plan again. We would, you know, coordinate it at a public place, access. I envision it being similar with more communication, press release, similar materials to what we had, although they'll be further developed. And we can provide information on all of that when we have our work session.
Anything else on?
Well, I just want to make sure we give our customers enough time. I mean, if we're not even planning on meeting until the 19th of September, but we know some are going to be rolling it out the following week, does that really give Laura and Melissa time to notify all of our customers in whatever means we, whether it's a newsletter, email, that we're even having these meetings? I want to make sure that they know about it. You know, we've been discussing talking points, and Ted just gave me some today that I think you've been working on, so thank you. But I think we need to make sure that we, I mean, is there any way to move up our meeting a week? Would we be prepared at all by the 12th? I think we're putting so much into a 10-day period of time here.
And that would be a special meeting to just address this.
Yes.
That would be the week of the planning committee. That it feels very close to today, I guess I'm going to say. I do think that the third draft is not going to be 100% complete. It's going to be close. There are going to be a few details that we're not able to work out. And I don't know that we have to have every detail in the third draft complete when we have our sharing meeting with the board. I would have to look and see if the 12th is doable. I have to give that a little thought. So I just thinking we would shoot for the next week.
I'm just thinking, I'm looking at the 2 of you. I mean, 1 week turnaround is that time to notify all of our customers and hopefully to get them in the week of the 28th, or I'm sorry, the week of the 25th for these public hearings. That seems.
Well, we're going to have one on the 28th, and my understanding was that we were likely to have 2. One later than the 28th of September.
So we are going to have one on this.
Well, if we coordinate with West Des Moines, which is the current plan, then yes. And then it's a second opportunity, whether that's at our board meeting or if we want to have another public meeting. That's something that we can talk about. What if we spend some time here this week and put together a plan that lays out the details of the dates?
I can't hear who's ever speaking.
Oh, can you go up to the podium?
Hi, Grant.
It's Melissa. We have a communications plan and strategy talking points. We've just been waiting until we knew the stages of the drafts and when you wanted to host the meetings. But we can email, communicate with our customers. We've got some close media connections. We can have some articles in the paper. We could probably even have maybe an op-ed or a letter to the editor talking about this. We can definitely launch social media posts a little more frequently. So we can communicate as you wish for us to, but I agree with Ted. I think it might be good for us to get together and know exactly what the wishes of the board are and when.
I think it would be appropriate for us to share the plan. And that you can provide feedback as opposed to trying to determine what your wishes are, that's shouldn't be your responsibility. We should give you what the plan is and you can react to that.
We canceled the finance and audit meeting on the 5th.
Right. Now you're really getting close. That's like.
No, I'm wondering,
Just
to go over the plan.
Oh, the communications plan.
Yeah, I can't remember why we canceled it, but is
Just
that,
didn't have a topic.
okay, so is that open to just hear the plan?
It's open for me. Yeah, we could take that to finance and auditor, that anyone who's interested could participate in that.
I think we have to think, even though we've been involved in this for years and years and years, other people will pick it up, and we don't want people to say, well, look at this thing, I have a week, right, to look at this, and, we can't say to them, you haven't been paying attention for years. That's just, they have to have time. It's very dense. Can't just give them a couple of days to look at it and expect they'll have questions. Maybe nobody will show up again like they did last time. That's fine. But what we don't want is for somebody to say, you cut us short on this.
Understood.
So it have assumed on the 5th to hear about the plan, what would be rolled out, knowing that part of that would be our first communication with customers, these vignettes, whatever you want to call it, on the 28th. And what if we took the planning meeting on the 19th, the planning meeting on the 12th and rolled out the document.
No, we have the planning meeting, so
The planning meeting up. And part of it. Just wondering if that works.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear Sue. She wants to do what on the planning meeting?
move the planning meeting into a special board meeting to approve the final draft. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm suggesting the week of the 11th is what I'm suggesting, a meeting the week of the 11th. So that everyone has, at least 2 weeks to respond to this draft.
The final draft of the agreement?
A draft which Ted is saying won't be the final, because there's still going to be some holes in it. Right, Ted?
That is correct. There's going to be another iteration of this because after the third draft, we have to give communities the opportunity to opt in and opt out. Based on that, we have to redo the financial model and give them the final numbers. They're not going to change that much, assuming that the majority of the communities join. But we're expecting there will be some tweaking of the third draft. Now, I just am having a little trouble committing to having the final draft ready to review by the 12th. That's, I guess that's 3 weeks from today.
Well, I guess I don't understand. The purpose of that meeting would be to take action on the draft?
I'm not looking for the board to act on the draft, but what we've done historically with each draft is we brought it to the board, we've presented all of the changes and the updates and shared and got any feedback and made sure that there weren't questions, concerns, issues with the draft before it was issued. But I don't believe the board has taken action. But I think, Graham, that's the conversation we're trying to schedule here on either the 12th or sometime that week. We were I was talking about doing that on the 19th. But if we want to do it on the 12th, we'll make that work.
And
Would
when,
it,
sorry, go ahead, Graham.
I'm just trying to think this through. I mean, I get Sue's point. She wants to make sure, and I'm putting words in your mouth, Sue, so correct me if I've misunderstood, but you want to make sure that the public has enough time to digest this document and ask questions and participate in that tweaking that Ted is talking about. Is that correct?
Not really. Diane, go ahead, because I think we've had some conversations with West Moines and Urbandale, and I think we're trying to sync this up.
I think this will be the third draft. What we've done with the other ones is seen what the changes are and then send them out to the communities. And I don't think, then we want the public to have an opportunity to look at it, because I think this will be close to the final. There are some things in there like the Urbandale, West Des Moines, Xenia thing that really doesn't involve us.
Right.
But we have to wait until it's finished. But they also need to get the drafts so that they can then you schedule your public input sessions to say, what do you think about this draft? Do you have comments? We think we're far enough along, not the final, but far enough that we can take public comment, that there's not going to be any big things change. But that would be after. We don't vote on the draft. Well, when we vote is when we're ready to sign the whole thing. Is that correct?
That's correct, or
Yeah.
at least that's the vision that I have, and that's what we've done thus far is shared the draft, got feedback, and then we issued the draft. A couple of things that I will say is we've talked with Urbandale and West Des Moines about this concept of having the third draft ready by mid-September. And so, you know, that second Tuesday, which is the 12th, is ahead of that a little bit. Our next meeting with that team is the 6th. That was the first opportunity we had to get that group back together. And so I think we have to set a timeline and stick to it. But I would not be surprised if Urbandale and West Des Moines were not ready to review a draft by the 12th. I think we can review it though. We can review what we have to that point. It'll be very, very close. There'll be a couple of things outstanding, I'm sure, that we're waiting for from other people.
I just think the things that are going to be outstanding on the 12th, they're going to be outstanding on the 19th.
Well, maybe.
You know, why not move ahead on it and give these two, you know, the timeline that finalize the plan, knowing that, you know, give it to us on the 12th, whatever the plan is. And on the 12th, I'm sorry, on the 5th, and on the 12th, then we see it, we push it out, and it gives everyone 2 weeks. And I mean by everyone, the other communities, they're waiting on us so that then they can notify their customers.
Gives them 2 weeks to review it or 2 weeks to notify their customers before the
Everything.
public meeting.
I mean, they're looking to us to say, when are we going to get it out? And I think we need to be able to say to them, you will have it following our meeting on the 12th. If this board is that.
But Ted, don't you have an agreement with them that you'd have it by mid-September?
That's what we've discussed, Graham, with the small group, is that our target is mid-September, which is, you know, the Friday of that week. And so I guess what I would propose is that we say, you know, we'll share what we have with the board on the 12th. We can commit to that. Sharing what we have and the changes, we can do something very similar to what we've done before, where we have a red line between the 2 drafts and we have the changes. We can do that easily.
But if the small group has agreed to the 15th, why are we rethinking that? I don't understand. why we're pushing to do something earlier than what the small group has already agreed to do.
We need to go through it. I think that's what we're scheduling a time so we can go through it before the release. We've gone through the other ones before their release. If
Right.
we have concerns or there's things that need to be tweaked, then they can do that before that Friday. But I think
I
we're
think-
just talking about time for us to see it.
I think we can look at this as our board's review and preparation for having it done by the 15th.
Okay.
And we may still have some tweaking to do that week. But that's kind of what the target has been. And then I think it would be a huge victory if we could get it out to the rest of the communities on the 15th.
Okay.
And then on the 28th, have a public meeting, and that would give us, I think, time to communicate with our customers that we'll be having a public meeting, where it is, when it is, how it is. And then I think as part of our preparation for the meeting on the 5th, we'll give some thought to whether we want to have a second opportunity and how we want to do that. It takes a lot of time and effort and planning to put these public meetings together, and then we have one person attend. Makes you wonder if multiple meetings, maybe we see how it goes on the 28th, and if we have interest, we can have another one. That might be an option. But we'll bring that on the 5th as well.
Okay. Did everyone catch the dates and the timeline and we're good to move forward? I don't know, I have to put that back again. That I believe wraps up our public comment period, and we'll move into item 3, action items. Item 3A is the CEO spending authority. Ted, do you want to give a summary on this?
I do, Andrea. This is something that we've actually talked about with the board a couple of times here this year. There was a question about whether with increases in costs and things that have changed in the last 10 years, if we need to consider an increase in the spending authority. Amy has done the work here to take a look at trends and comparables and whatnot, and has presented to the Finance and Audit Committee the concept of increasing the CEO spending authority to $150,000 from $100,000. That would apply to projects that are not public improvements, such as equipment purchases, small maintenance repair projects, some consulting projects. Anything that's considered a public improvement would still be governed by Chapter 26.3 of the Iowa Code, and there's a $100 or $100,000 requirement there. So any public improvement more than 100,000 would still come to the board. One other small piece here is that when that change was made in 2013, the board packet actually said that we would bring, or that any CEO approved expenditure above $40,000 would be brought to the board for information. For whatever reason, that piece of the change didn't get translated into the board policy as it was in what was approved by the board. So we continued to bring any expenditure over $20,000, any CEO approved expenditure, which we had one today. So included in this recommendation or proposal is not only adjusting the spending authority for non-public improvements to 250 and correcting that, I guess what I would call an error in implementation of the board's last approval to 40,000 from 20,000. There is one comparable that is included in here, which is the WRA. We often compare ourselves to the WRA because other water utilities in the state of Iowa are all much smaller than us. The director of the WRA that has a spending authority up to $160,000 is fairly comparable. So I'll offer that to the board for your consideration. Recommend that you approve increasing the spending authority.
I need a motion to approve and adopt the proposed revisions to section 302.3 of the board policy manual effective immediately and direct staff to amend and restate the board policy manual in the form presented.
So moved.
Any questions or discussion?
I've got one. Ted, are there any examples of when the $100,000 limit being too low caused a problem?
Graham, I don't have a list of specific examples where it was a problem, but we certainly have situations where we have a project that we're going to bid we expect it to be $90,000. And so we end up those are usually like professional services contracts. And so we will end up bringing those to the board. So in case it goes over $100,000, we won't have overstepped my spending authority. I'm going to say that there aren't a lot of those. And when we change it to 150,000, there'll probably still be those. There's always a line somewhere and you're always going to be close to the line. But this is more an attempt to stay current with costs of things and other entities of a similar size, as opposed to there being a specific problem with the $100,000 limit.
And Graham, I know Andrea and I brought that same question up to Ted because we'd really looked to Lindsay and said, what other best practices? What are some of the things? And so for some of the emergency actions that Ted needs to take, we thought this might be helpful to increase this because as the costs have gone up, certainly we've seen that things that have come across to this board. So part of this, I want to say, I feel like I initiated for you to take a look at, and I appreciated it coming back, but it's not like we said, okay, at this point, that's going to reduce 25% of the things that come to the board. It's just keeping more in line with increasing costs and benchmarking other organizations similar to ours.
And I will note too that based on a comment that Alec made at the committee meeting, we have included in this recommendation that this be reviewed every 5 years. And there's a list of considerations in there, comparables, inflation, whatnot. We didn't really look at it from the perspective of how many times it's been a problem. But honestly, the answer would be not often, but we're just trying to keep current.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's my concern here. I mean, it seems like we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. I mean, if we were having issues with the limit being too low that you could cite, I could see why we wanted to raise it, but to raise it without any examples of a problem, I've got a problem with that because we're a public body, and I would like to err on the side of things coming to the board and being discussed and reviewed in public, as opposed to the other way, doing it the other way. And this just seems to raise the limit just to raise the limit. And you're not giving me any reason to do that.
Graham, I hear what you're saying, and I'd have to admit, I think I was also with Sue in that conversation when we asked what the spending limit was and if it was current with what other folks do. I think I was reflecting on what our president's spending authority was in my nonprofit. So to a certain extent here, I think you're absolutely correct. There hasn't been a problem that this was identified to solve as much as it was just a question and an answer, and then the answer being that others are elsewhere, and so we should adjust ours as well. And I think that was also a result of seeing, I think it probably came after hearing about all of the increases in prices in various materials and even professional services and whatnot, but I don't think you're wrong.
We talked a lot of the finance and audit, and Amy had one. I had actually asked Amy to dig a little deeper on some comparables and everything, and we just weren't able to find a whole lot. I think the problem here is the limit's not tied to anything. It's an arbitrary number that we picked and are trying to benchmark to. So that's what I would challenge us as an organization, as a board, is to come up with a why, and whether that's further benchmarking, understanding how it's tied to a percentage, whether reflection of the operational expenditure budget or something like that, so that we know that as inflation and other cost pressures adjust, this thing would adjust naturally to potentially avoid a future problem. To your point, Graham, is it a problem right now? I think that's kind of where we're on the fence. It could be, and we're trying to get ahead of it, but to me, the bigger problem is there's just not really any rhyme or reason behind it right now, and I'd love to see us put some structure behind that if possible.
And how, I mean, other than raising the limit, how are we changing the rhyme or reason?
In this resolution, we're not, and we've looked a little bit deeper for more data to support a reasoning, but right now we don't have anything. But I'd love to continue to explore that.
Do we want
I
to?
mean, yeah, I mean, I would recommend that we table this discussion until, we include those things that you're talking about, the rhyme or reason. As I said, just raising the limit just because we feel like we should raise the limit seems kind of counter to good public policy. I mean, we should always err on approving these things as a board, and no one's giving me any reason, that we've had any problems with the limit as it is, nor are we changing any of the language to tie it to anything, to any other factors. It's just a dollar limit. And I think we should keep it where it is.
So, I would just offer.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go. Why don't you go to that? Go to the. Yeah.
I was just gonna offer that we were trying, with all those board policy manual edits we made, we're trying to streamline the processes, especially with our CIP being so large and trying to consult more. And one of the things we did were those indefinite scope agreements, which were the dollar amounts to $1 million for projects. And so if I think about consultants, they're about 15%. I think I brought that number to you before, which would be 150,000 if you look at 15% of $1 million. So I think it would help streamline the process, because if I get a professional service proposal, I have to wait until the next month at the next board meeting to bring that to get it approved, and it just delays that process. So I would just offer that for you guys to think about.
So that $1 million is a benchmark that we as a board have identified and agreed upon when it came to those
Indefinite
projects.
scopes. Yep.
Yeah.
So all projects, you can do it up to $1 million. Yep. And that was in the kind of our processes. So
your point, I like that, what like you just said, just repeating, that would be that 10% tie for the rhyme and reason. But
15%
Or,
is
sorry.
kind of our typical consultant fee. So I just offer that for thoughts.
But again, that's not what we're voting on today.
well, it's the $1 million has already been voted on. 15% would equal the 150,000 that we are voting on today.
Graham, I was just trying to give you some justification of where that 150,000 would kind of make sense with us
Right.
trying to streamline the processes.
Right. And I hear what you're saying about, a possible delay until a board meeting. We do meet every month, and again, until that seems to be a problem, you can tell me that, waiting the 10 days until there's a board meeting or whatever the timeline is, I'm not convinced that there's any justification to raise this limit.
Okay, and again, I want to take responsibility for this. I was so gung ho seeing some of the benchmarks that Lindsay brought forward. At the same time, we were having some problems in the park, as you will recall, from some rallies, and I think we wanted to get the grounds crew on top of those and able to approve those, repairs, if you will, for some bigger things coming up. So there were some things that were happening at the time, and knowing how expensive everything is now, that was the reason that in one of our committee meetings, I said, let's take a look at the spending authority. So this wasn't.
But we were able to address those things that you talked about, that concerned you under the current spending authority.
Can I make a
Yes.
motion? I don't know
Sure.
how this, but I guess I would move to table it. There is no, as I can tell, real hurry to get this done or any compelling reason to do this right now. Apparently, we have a board member who's pretty concerned about this, so I think taking some more time to work through this.
Before you make that motion, I have a question for John. Do we need to approve the clarification or the edit from 2015? Or not?
I have not reviewed the board packets, but I assume the board packets say what they say about us having previously approved that. So if it's been approved before in the board packets, I don't think we would need to vote on that now. We just need to have the policy manual reflect what's previously been approved on the $40,000 reporting threshold. So.
Okay.
I second Diane's motion.
All right. So we have a motion and second to table this discussion. Any additional comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, moving on. The item 3B is the request authorization to reimburse Polk County for the 2023 Waterworks Park road repairs.
Andrea, we have often in the past worked with Polk County to provide asphalt paving in Waterworks Park. The county bids millions of dollars of asphalt resurfacing every year. We bid a very small amount that is for very small patches and is a very high cost per ton of asphalt or per square foot of patch. And so we have on many occasions in the past had the opportunity to work with Polk County and get some of our paving in the park done under their contract. We budgeted to do that same thing this year. There's a map just behind the yellow that shows an area in the Arboretum where we propose to have a 3-inch overlay of asphalt put on the Arboretum roads. That will significantly dress up roads that are kind of in distress. I think if I'm not mistaken, Jess, does that pave everything that wasn't paved as part of the park improvements? So we'll have a really nice road system there in the Arboretum and for a really good cost. And so we're requesting authorization to work with Polk County to have asphalt pavement put in the Arboretum and to reimburse them for that work.
So can I have a motion to authorize staff to reimburse Polk County for the 2023 Waterworks Park road repairs project?
Second.
Any discussion on this item? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, moving on to item 3C is request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute agreement for lead service line replacement software.
Andrea, we've talked about lead service line replacement a number of times with the board. And one of the first requirements under the lead service line replacement, the lead and copper rule revisions from EPA, one of the first requirements is to complete a detailed inventory, and it has to be completed in a very specific way, and it has to take advantage of known data and algorithms that determine or estimate material based on software. And we have a need to purchase a piece of software to facilitate that work and to comply with the EPA regulations. And so in June, we issued a request for proposals. We got 3 proposals. We had a staff team that reviewed the proposals based on a number of criteria, including firm experience, capabilities of the software, the firm's approach, and fees, of course. Based on that review, staff is recommending that we purchase a software from Blue Conduit. The implementation costs, which includes getting the system set up and helping us input the data and helping us configure it so that we can learn and start to estimate what every service line material is. It's $231,000 plus a consultant fee of $60,000, $63,000 for a total $294,500. That cost is spread over 3 years. It's not evenly spread. It's kind of heavily weighted in the front to get all the setup and everything done. I will say that Blue Conduit wasn't the cheapest and it wasn't the most expensive. It was in the middle in terms of cost of the 3 options, but it provided us with the best fit for meeting the requirements of the lead and copper rule and completing that inventory by October of 24. Jenny, is that right? Yes. So we would request that the board authorize execution of a professional services agreement with Blue Conduit.
So I'm looking for a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a professional services contract with Blue Conduit for implementation costs of lead service line replacement software contingent upon negotiation of final terms and conditions acceptable to staff and subsequent review by legal counsel.
Second.
Any questions or comments? So this is software that will take us through our entire journey of lead service line replacement.
Yeah, and for those who couldn't hear, Jenny said yes, that is the case.
If no other questions or comments, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Item 3D is request authorization to solicit bids for FDTP closed loop cooling systems and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the September 2023 board meeting.
Andrea, we have 2 pretty significant pieces of equipment at the Fluor Drive water treatment plant. Our standby emergency generator and our diesel high service pump that are actually cooled using finished drinking water that flows through basically the radiator of those pieces of equipment and then is delivered back to the gallery where it's used as raw water for the process again. A pretty efficient cooling, but there's the potential that if that heat exchanger would have a leak that we could negatively impact water quality in our gallery system. And so what we're proposing to do here is eliminate that water cooled system, that finished water flow through system, and put in what I call a closed loop system, but closed loop cooling system for those 2 pieces of equipment. And what we've got a consultant who's working on the design for those 2 closed loop cooling systems. The estimate for the project is a little over $1.2 million. We're looking for authorization to solicit bids for the project.
So we need a motion to authorize staff to solicit bids for the FDTP closed loop cooling systems project and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the September 2023 board meeting and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Our next item 3E is request authorization to issue purchase order for replacement RO membranes for Saylorville Water Treatment Plant.
Andrea, we have a dual membrane plant at Saylorville. All of the water goes through UF or ultrafiltration membranes, and then a portion of the water goes through RO membranes to provide softening and nitrate removal if it were necessary. The RO membranes are basically a wear part. They have to be replaced on a regular basis. We have 4 RO, or reverse osmosis trains. RO membranes tend to have a service life of somewhere between 3 and 5 years. And so we have gotten on a cycle of replacing 1 train each year, so they get replaced every 4 years. And that has worked pretty effectively. That's worked pretty effectively, so that we're getting to the point where we see the RO membranes losing some efficiency, but we're not to the point where they're so plugged that we can't produce water. So we really want to stay on that cycle of replacing 1 train every year. 294 RO membranes. We requested proposals. We got 3 bids, which are listed there, shown there, for the types of membranes that we use, and we're recommending issuing a purchase order to Consolidated Water Solutions for the low price of over $161,000. We recommend that the board authorize us to issue that purchase order.
I need a motion to authorize staff to issue a purchase order in the amount of $161,259 to Consolidated Water Solutions for purchase of replacement reverse osmosis membranes with a 3-year prorated warranty for the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant.
So moved.
Any questions? Okay. Go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Great. Moving on to item 3F, which is a public hearing. So this is on the Des Moines Waterworks ground maintenance facility. And I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. Sorry, I'm trying to get my computer to work. Open up the public hearing, and I'm looking for comments from the public or concerning the project, or if Ted, if anybody has sent any comments in.
Andrea, we haven't received any comments on the form of contract plans, specifications, or estimated costs for the project.
Is there any public here to speak on this matter? Right, hearing none and seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And now turn it over to you, Ted, for some additional information.
First of all, I would offer that we have evaluated the potential for sharing or renting facilities for this purpose. And Mike Kernan has provided an affidavit that there are no suitable facilities rent or sharing. Then I think, John, do we need a motion for adoption of the form of contract plans and specifications?
Yes, we do. So I need a motion to award. No, just a motion to adopt the form of contract plan specification and estimated costs.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now let's analyze those bids.
Thanks, Andrea. This is a big day. I know there are a number of people in the room who are very interested in seeing our new grounds maintenance facility get off the ground, if you will. Plans and specifications for this project were issued after the June board meeting. We received 8 bids for construction of our grounds maintenance facility on the 10th of August. And we received very good bids. In fact, the 2 lowest bids, including all of the alternates, which was an additional bay and our water fill station, which is Kyle, and a couple of other things that I don't remember, including all the alternates, was actually less than the base bid estimate. So good bids, very tight bids. We're very comfortable with those bids. Hinkle Construction is the company that built the amphitheater and the improvements here in the park, and so we've had good experience. They've also built our Northwest 26th booster station. We've had good experience with Hinkle, and we're excited about them being the contractor. And so we would recommend that the board award the project to Hinkle Construction for a price a little bit over $3.7 million.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the award to the Des Moines Waterworks for the Des Moines Waterworks ground maintenance facility contract to Hinkle Construction in the amount of $3,780,900 and authorize the chairperson and CEO and general manager to execute the contract.
So moved.
Second.
Is this a roll call vote or an all? Okay. Any additional conversations? Not all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Oh,
Which would have been,
which would have been to adopt the form and contract. Hey, Graham, we didn't catch, can I confirm that you approved the motion to adopt the form of contract plans and specifications and estimated? Yeah, we got a thumbs up.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that motion passes and the contract is awarded. Moving on.
Yay.
a long road.
Moving on to our next agenda item 3G, environmental review of Saylorville water treatment plant transmission improvements.
Yes, Andrea, as part of the Saylorville Water Treatment Plant 10 MGD expansion, we need to construct a couple of transmission main segments. We are planning to fund those projects through SRF loans, and as part of that SRF project, the Iowa DNR has to perform an environmental review. And then we, as the owner, once that review is completed, are required to have a public hearing. And so what we would like to do here now is have you open the public hearing, and then Jonathan is going to share the findings from that review with the public and see if there are any comments.
Okay. So I will go ahead and open up that public hearing regarding the environmental review of Saylorville water treatment plant transmission improvements.
So as Ted stated, any project that's receiving financing through the state revolving fund undergoes this environmental review process that's conducted by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Des Moines Waterworks is currently designing 2 transmission main projects that will increase the transmission capacity from the Saylorville water treatment plant to the western portions of the metro area. These projects were identified in the Des Moines Waterworks long-range plan, originally done in 2017, I believe, and will address some restrictions to the core transmission main network. Caitlin. Project DT 2008 extends transmission mains from along Northwest Beaver Drive to the Merle Bay I-80 intersection in Johnston. Project DT 2009 connects existing transmission mains by extending a new main along Aikman Road from the Merle Bay intersection to 73rd Street. Maps, what Caitlin's scrolling through right now, along with the full copy of the Iowa DNR's environmental impact document should be in your packets if you'd like to look them over for more detail.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I can try. The DNR sought input from and comment from federal, state, and local agencies on potential environmental impacts related to these projects. No comments were received from any agency. The DNR also evaluated environmental impacts of the projects. These included the construction impact, historical archaeological impact, generic environmental, floodplain, wetlands, government land, protected species, land use, and potential discriminatory impacts of the projects. And the DNR issued a finding of no significant impact for each of these criteria. And after any comments that the board might have or questions, then we need to follow through with the public hearing and solicit comments from the public as related to this environmental review specifically.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question for you, Ted. I don't know if that's more appropriate after. Right now, my question just goes to whether or not this is consistent with the regional group and whether or not it has been taken through that group.
Both, yes, it is. These projects were identified in our long-range plan as part of regional expansion, and they're needed to deliver the 10 MGD of expanded capacity at Saylorville to the west is primarily what they're for. And it has been reviewed with the technical committee, including some sizing discussion, what size the pipe should be, and an agreement on that. And voted on, as Kyle said, and approved by that committee, although it's something of an informal committee, but they were all in favor of the project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? And any questions from any public comments to be shared? Did you receive any?
We did not receive any.
Yes, thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing and authorize staff to report that a public hearing was held.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item 3, sorry, we're out of our action items now.
Yes.
And on to our information items. We talked a little bit about the finance and audit committee, but is, Alec, do you have any additional things to add from the committee meeting?
I think it's the second meeting in a row where we've had an action. I don't know what we discussed where I kind of was out of the bag. Yeah, I think we've already obviously talked about CEO spending authority, and it sounds like we've got a little bit of thinking and work to do on that end. I wrote notes and then I forgot to bring that notebook, but I know Amy had another discussion item that actually is somewhat relevant to what we just discussed around usage, ways in which the SRF funds can be allocated in other areas that could put those future availability of funds at risk. And I guess maybe Amy, I will defer to you since I forgot my notes.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me, Graham?
Thumbs up.
I reported that in the industry, in the water industry, and particularly with SRF programs, there is a concern with the increasing use of congressional earmarks, which are taking away from the SRF funding that will be allocated back out to states. And so we are working with our Woodbury team to monitor that, to do what we can, along with others in the industry, to share our concern with that. I have spoken with the DNR and the Iowa Finance Authority, who administers the SRF program. And they said in the short term, because of the bipartisan infrastructure law, they have not grave concerns for the next 5 years, but after that, it could become a problem. So I need to be aware of monitoring.
I appreciate hearing that. I think that goes to the article I sent you, Ted, that I came across in the New York Times about that concern. So knowing that you guys are on top of it makes me feel good, and appreciate the staff here and the work that they do to stay relevant and up to speed with things that are happening with legislation across the country.
That's all I have. Thank you, Amy, for filling in for my lack of memory, but that was all we had for finance and audit.
And planning committee?
Planning, we had a great presentation on the water main replacement program. Compliments to Carla Schumacher and Mike Zach. It was very good. And I know that we asked for the whole PowerPoint to be shared with all of you, and I saw that did go out. And then great news from Kyle. He shared with us that water sales continue to be high for the year, which we love to hear. And that he also was talking to the Regional Technical Committee about sharing presentations, similar presentations on their distribution systems, how they all interact with each other. So a very effective meeting, and thank you very much to our staff that put that together.
Our next two items go to you, Graham. Not sure if you want to start with the Botanical Garden and then share information from the Stowe Foundation.
Sure. The Botanical Garden is simple. Things are good over there. They've had great attendance. The membership is up. They are at the process of beginning a capital campaign, kind of a second phase of a capital campaign, if you will. The first phase had to do with replacing not sexy stuff like the HVAC system and other things. The next phase involves the remaining acres there, which are pretty exciting. So life is pretty good over there, and under good leadership, and the board continues to grow and be involved. So that's good news. On to the Stowe Foundation. Ted, did you share that document with the board that we discussed today?
I did.
Would you like to would you like to discuss that now or as part of your comments?
I think we could discuss it now, Graham. I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. What Ted shared with you, and let me just kind of take a step back, as I've discussed with the board, as the Stowe Foundation thinks about its project, the two-pronged project, the building and installation of the art piece, which is called Water Curia, that'll stand in the park between the Lorenzen Amphitheater and Grays Lake. That piece is moving along, and I'll give you an update on that in a moment. But the second part of that capital campaign is to fund an endowment focusing on education. And I told you earlier this summer that the Stowe Foundation has engaged the School of Education at Drake. They're working on research, finding out what curriculum is available to students. Currently developing a test module for fifth graders that focuses on the gallery system at Waterworks that will be tested this fall in a fifth grade classroom in Des Moines. But the second piece of that education curriculum development, if you will, is working with the Citizens Water Academy to think about how the Citizens Water Academy is going to evolve into the future, how we connect the good things that have happened at the Citizens Water Academy to a broader audience, to adults and people throughout central Iowa that may not have the opportunity to attend the Citizens Water Academy. And so as we develop that curriculum at the Stowe Foundation, what's become very apparent to us is that what's really needed is collaboration, right? So that we pull people around the table who are working in this space. And I'll give you an example. Polk County Conservation has a grant they're working on currently to develop curriculum for summer school students focusing on water and environmental education, which is it's a great thing. And I think good things are going to come out of the Polk County Conservation Project. But we want to make sure that the good things that they're working on, the good things that maybe the Stowe Foundation is working on, things that are happening in Des Moines Public Schools, the Citizens Water Academy, all of these different components are talking together and working together, and we're sharing the good work that's being done. And Ted and I had a conversation about how best to protect and move forward the Citizens Water Academy and the good things that happened there. And one of the ideas that we are moving forward with the Stowe Foundation, in addition to developing curriculum in and around the Water Curia that will change, curriculum that we'll send out to students, is engagement in the broader public. So there's this concept that we begin an annual speaker series, probably around Earth Day of every year in April, which is a nice bookend to the fact that the Citizens Water Academy is a fall activity. But a speaker series on water and environmental issues that help further the mission of Des Moines Waterworks and the things that we're all passionate about here. Developing that speaker series, as I say, to engage the broader public on these issues and to push forward issues that are important to our mission. But also, there's a side benefit here that I think I'll let Ted talk about it in a minute, but there's this exciting opportunity here to involve alumni of the Citizens Water Academy in developing that next phase, that evolution of the Citizens Water Academy, the selection of the annual speaker and or other activities that might go on throughout the year. So we bring these alumni back. We actually give them a charge, if you will, to help create this vision for the speakers series. So all that being said, the draft that you have before us, and we give you this draft today so that you can kind of think about this and know where we're heading, is to provide a little funding from Des Moines Waterworks to help us design all of these elements that I'm talking to you about, but more specifically and important to the Citizens Water Academy and Des Moines Waterworks, that public outreach that we would develop in concert with all of these partners. And so as a Des Moines Waterworks board member, the way I see it is Des Moines Waterworks is the head of the table, if you will, as we bring these people around to talk about the speaker series and the outreach efforts that we do. But we're the convener, if you will, of that conversation. The Stowe Foundation's role in that is to provide funding, which is more than the $100,000 we're asking, but is the funder in this project. And maybe we're part convener, but the chairman, if you will, the entity that's driving the mission of this speaker series and outreach development would be Des Moines Waterworks. And so what we're proposing is kind of a 4-year program, if you will, where Des Moines Waterworks provides some modest funding, $25,000 a year, to help us develop what those things look like, and how the speaker series comes together and that sort of thing, and grow it. Now, I think the best way, and again, as a Des Moines Waterworks board member, the way I see this is we as a board would, it's not $100,000 and we go away. It's a $25,000 annual grant. Stowe Foundation has to come back, report to the board, to the Des Moines Waterworks board. Here's what we've done. Here's the next phase of the project, and here's what we're going to need going forward, so that it's broken into four segments like that. I'm not sure what I've forgotten here, but I will say that I guess the Stowe Found what part of it is what I've forgotten. This is important. The Stowe Foundation's ongoing interest in this, other than forwarding ongoing education, is we do see an opportunity with the speakers series and possible other public education events to do a little fundraising, if you will, for the Stowe Foundation on an annual basis to reseed that endowment, so that we continue to have some funds at the Stowe Foundation to produce a speaker series, to produce curriculum in and around the water curia and update that on a regular basis, and some of these other events. And so other than keeping people involved and having an event that is noteworthy and engages people, possibly there's an opportunity there to reseed the fund. But the number one focus is not to raise money. The number one focus is to educate people, with a side benefit of reseeding the Stowe Foundation's education endowment. With that being said, I'll let you say a few comments, Ted, about kind of your evolution and thinking on this, and then open this up to any questions.
Absolutely, Graham. A couple of thoughts from me. And one thing that I would offer is that the Citizen Water Academy has been very popular. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from the participants, everything from, give us more time to network with each other while we're here, to, how about no more death by PowerPoint, to we love the tours and we want to see more of what you do. There's opportunity there to enhance what we've done, even though it's been popular and we have more people who want in now than we have space. There's real opportunity to improve. And I think that that's part of where This partnership with Drake can come along. I think they can help us with developing curriculum that will be more engaging and more interesting and make it even more popular than it is. But the other thing, and the thing that I'm even more excited about from my perspective, is the Citizen Water Academy thus far has really been kind of a one and done thing. You come, you go through the academy, and then, you know, you're an alumni, so what? Well, one of the things that I really like about this thought is the speaker program, where we not only do we invite you know, a well-known speaker to come and speak, but we offer alumni of the Citizen Water Academy the opportunity to attend those events for free. So it brings them back, it keeps them involved. We also involve them as alumni in the selection committee and setting that up. And so now we start to create a community of people who've been through the academy and are water quality champions. And we don't just have a class that we go through once a year. We have an organization. This could be a real signature thing for Des Moines Waterworks. It could be a model for something that could be done in other places around the country. I think there's real potential there. I'm most interested in, you know, feeding curriculum and speakers to the academy and turning it into an ongoing, ever-growing community of water quality advocates. And so that's what I would add, Graham, a couple of pieces that I think I am excited about.
And I would just add to that, Ted, again, you know, these are just ideas and things that this board and the Des Moines Waterworks staff would have to work on. You know, we're asking for, you know, a little bit of investment here of $100,000 to help develop this. But in thinking about the future of the Citizens Water Academy, especially in the light of regionalization, you know, Des Moines Waterworks wants to see this grow, and I think it's in Des Moines Waterworks' best interest to see this grow and have people participate in this. But diversifying that funding, if you will, of the Citizens Water Academy, so it's not just Des Moines ratepayers that are paying for some of this outreach, would be in our interest as a board and as ratepayers at Des Moines Waterworks. And so my thought of having, you know, involving the Stowe Foundation, creating this education endowment that can help pay for some of this outreach and programming could potentially take a little of that burden off of our ratepayers. But what, again, and I know I've said this before, but I want to restate it so it's not lost. The key here is that Des Moines Waterworks continues to be to set the agenda for this Citizens Water Academy and these outreach programs. And so I think that if we design this appropriately, Des Moines Waterworks sits in the driver's seat of doing this, but perhaps down the road and through the Stowe Foundation's help, we diversify that funding. So, and I'll leave with this just because you might ask me. I want any questions about all of this. I'll take it. But the water curia itself, the physical structure of the art installation, really exciting things have happened in the last 10 days to 14 days on that. Things are beginning to move forward in a very positive way. It is Ted and my estimate that the October meeting, possibly the November meeting for sure, I expect for the Stowe Foundation to come to this board, show you the final renderings, the final plan for the water curia, and ask for the board's approval to move forward on the water curia. It is our hope and our plan at this point to be able to break ground on Earth Day of April 2024 for the water curia and to have it operational for the 24-25 school year. So that still sounds ambitious to me, but the things that have happened and are happening right now make that seem possible. So look to hear from us in the next few months on the water curia itself. So I'll shut up about that, and please ask me any questions you have about any of that.
I have a question, Graham. So is the speaker series then okay, I just want to make sure that I'm tracking. The Citizens Water Academy is a program of Des Moines Waterworks. Will it stay a program
Correct.
of Des Moines Waterworks? And then the speaker series is a program of the Water Academy? Or is it a program of Des Moines Waterworks, or is it a program of the Stowe Foundation? Like what?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And I think to a certain degree, yet to be determined, right, Andrea? I mean, it's not the nice thing about the Stowe Foundation and the fact that it's a new thing, there's no reason to forward the Stowe Foundation name necessarily, right? I mean, our mission is to forward, frankly, Bill's legacy on a lot of these issues, but it's not to promote the Stowe Foundation. So I don't think that's necessarily a thing. I do think that call it the Des Moines Waterworks and Citizens Water Academy sponsorship of or even ownership of that, and we just need to work that through. I think that's really key because we want to continue to recruit people to attend the Citizens Water Academy and let that evolve into what's next. And so I'm not really answering your questions, but I think that's the thing that we really need to study over the next few months to think about how this works, what's in the best interest of the Citizens Water Academy. And I say the next few months because as Ted and I were talking today, if we're successful and we're going to break ground in April of this year for the Water Curia, maybe we can kind of, if we don't kick off the speakers series, at least announce the speaker series this April. And so we should have those ducks in a row by that time period. So I'm not really answering your question, but I think it's first and foremost, and I think this board is the entity that makes the decision about whose name is associated with the speaker series and how does that work.
Yeah, I just asked the question because as Ted was mentioning, I'm very excited. You know, outreach and community engagement is part of my day job, especially environmental outreach and education. So part to what Ted was saying, this is, you know, as a great step in a fabulous direction for Waterworks to provide that ongoing opportunity for the Citizens Water Academy alumni to continue to engage with us and kind of be continue to learn and be advocates for water quality and for the work that we do here and beyond. So, you know, kind of understanding, is this a continuation of a program, or is it a is it a separate thing that was inspired by the Des Moines Waterworks? I think plays a role in how it's marketed and yep. How we engage it and promote it within our utility to our member or to our ratepayers. My second
and I think we really need to put our but before you leave that one, Andrew, I think we really need to put our heads together on that to make sure that, you know, all of those questions that you have are answered. And the one thing that we didn't discuss that is obvious as well, and the other partner at this table is the Park Foundation, right? I mean, so that the Park Foundation, as it contemplates education throughout the park and the things that it's doing, how does that overlap? And, you know, how do we share that information as well? I mean, the Citizens Water Academy, the Park Foundation, those things need to work in concert. And we don't have the answer to those questions, but those are the things where we need to put our heads together. So I think you're on the right track.
Great. The second question I had for you, the $100,000 start, is that is that part of the 2 million and or the 1 million endowment, or is that, I think you said, to develop creating what the 1 million education fund endowment would look like?
Right. So so here's where we are today. First of all, it may not come as a surprise to you, our numbers have increased for construction. And so when we come to you to show you the Water Curia plan, that number for installing the Water Curia is going to be closer to 1.5 million, which grew our capital campaign now to 2.5 million. So that $1 million number for that endowment still remains, but our overall number is 2.5 million. it's our, at this point, this $100,000 that's coming into, is part of that endowment piece. But that is why that endowment piece, if you will, is going to be a moving number, because we're going to raise that $1 million and we're going to pay for some of this initial curriculum development, the materials and things that are around the water curia that we're going to install. And that initial $1 million, while we continue to call it endowment, is going to get smaller and smaller. And that's why it's going to be important for us to reseed it so that it actually becomes a true endowment in the years to come, where we're spending the revenue on that endowment and not spending the principal. But as we establish this, we're actually going to, take the $100,000 that Des Moines gives us and go out there and spend that money immediately while we grow the endowment. So right now I counted in the endowment, that $1 million endowment number, but that, truthfully, as we put the speaker series in place and we figure out how we're going to reseed that endowment over time, that's when we have to develop the plan so that it grows into a true endowment.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, because the word endowment caught me in that you
I'm sorry, that's my naivete in fundraising, and I will fix that.
So Graham, based on what you just said, then are we paying Drake? Is that why
Yes.
you're paying Drake to develop this curriculum?
Right. What we've done and started this summer, the payment, if you will, is the researchers on the project receive a stipend. And those researchers, and there's been 4 of them this summer, there may be more next summer as we determine the things they're going to work on. That money that is being paid, if you will, to Drake is not making any profit. It is the stipend that we are paying the 4. In this case, there's 2 professionals and 2 students.
Because that doesn't really come across, but based on what you said, I wondered. Because there are.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
There are class projects at Iowa State, and I know there was a professor there that used to have Bill come up and speak, that I would think could have done it as a class project instead of a payment to develop the curriculum.
Perhaps, and we plan on doing some of that as well. And I'll give you an example of that for a minute. When we sat down to begin talking to Drake about this, there was some specific research we wanted them to do, to go out and research curriculum that was out there that was, specific to some of the stuff that we're going to do, because we didn't want to go out and recreate some of this other work. And we felt, that was a little outside of the scope of some of what are the class projects that they work on, where they usually adopt a program. And, if it's a School of Mass Communication and Journalism, for instance, they adopt a program and they come up with a marketing plan and they do some of that stuff. And in the education program, they do some of that as well. And part of what we're doing this summer is developing curriculum. But we were asking them, and are going to ask them in the forthcoming years, to do things like Ted talked about. Look at the curriculum of the Citizens Water Academy and evaluate that and help us develop some modules. And so we thought that, having that professional agreement with Drake allowed us to recruit the quality of researchers we wanted to work on the summer, on a summer schedule, as opposed to outside of the classroom. But I agree with you. I think some of these programs are helpful, and we've actually already had a discussion with the School of Mass Communication and Journalism at Drake, not engaging them to do anything, but thinking about, engaging that class project, if you will, to think about the water curia and the develop of interactive materials, both physically located at the water curia and also online type outreach things. And that will be that could be a natural place, not only at Drake University, but like you say, Iowa State and other places to engage those classrooms. And I think we would be wise to look into those.
So just to be clear, this is being proposed, but we're not being asked to vote on it because it hasn't really come through a committee and had a chance for us to flesh all this out, right? Right.
Exactly. I wanted you to see it, and then, Ted, you provide some guidance about how, the process of going through a committee. What I wanted to do today is provide it as an information item so that we can begin thinking about this and doing it in the right way. As Andrea's question shows, there's a lot of questions that I think we need to make sure that we're asking as a board here at Waterworks, and the ones that we want answers to. And getting this in your hands, hopefully you can give that some thought. And as we go through the process, then we make sure that we're asking the right questions. So you're right. I'm not asking for a vote. I'm not asking for approval, but I'll look to Ted to develop what that process is.
Sounds good.
All right. Well then moving, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Good. Yeah, just before this, please let me know, either, now before it comes to us as a process, concerns you have, ideas you have. The goal here is to, further the Citizens Water Academy, to further this mission, and I think do some really good things. And don't think for a moment that the Stowe Foundation or any of us have figured this out or think we've figured this out. The real key is to put us all around the table and make sure that we do this the right way.
Great. Thank you.
No, thank you, guys.
The next item is the Park Foundation. I'm just checking, is this our first meeting since RAGBRAI? No.
Yeah.
Yes.
We met right before RAGBRAI.
Right before, but we didn't meet after. So we made it through RAGBRAI. All of us. Alec is still there. Grounds and all the Waterworks staff and all the effort and work you guys put into RAGBRAI, you're still here. So I think it was a success.
I would like to say, Andrew, that they were very good guests. We really didn't have any trouble. We really didn't have a lot of trash. We didn't have damage. And for that many people to be in the park and leave it looking good, that's a testament to the planning, not only of the RAGBRAI folks, but the local folks and our staff. It was a good event. They were good guests.
I can't imagine the stress and time and effort that went into the days, weeks, months leading up to RAGBRAI. So thank you all for ensuring that it was a successful event and that it went off as well as it did. There are some photos in your packet that were taken from drones or a drone that kind of show the magnitude of the people that were there. It was a hot day as folks came through, and that can make people nervous. I was working in the beer tent, watched people coming through incredibly, just burnt out between the heat and the miles. But so it was pleasant to see that there were no major issues here at the park. We continue to have events throughout the rest of the summer leading into the fall. I think that not only the Park Foundation, but all of us are excited to see kind of what the impact of the finances will be after big concerts like Willie Nelson and RAGBRAI. Those dollars have not been actualized in the finances yet. So we should be seeing those in the next month or two. And the other thing I would point out is that the Park Foundation has started to see that success as additional events are relocating to the park. You'll note in the board packet that Oktoberfest and 8035 have both made the decision to relocate from their current locations to the park. I think that's a testament to not only what the Park Foundation has been able to put on, but also what Des Moines Waterworks and our folks have been able to create the space for. So great work, everyone. Pat, any?
I don't have anything to.
Thank you. And then moving on from there, Ted, do you have any additional comments?
A couple of things. I'll be brief. It's hot again this week, and that is creating some interesting challenges for us. Nathan, it looks like gave up on us. Curtailment. Mid-American has notified us that they may ask us to shed power, shed load every day this week because of the heat and the stress that that puts on their infrastructure. That also puts a little stress on Nathan and his folks as they try to keep all that equipment running to produce water and then also run the generator and run everything basically on standby power. We also had measurable cyanotoxins in the Raccoon River yesterday and today, which is pretty unusual for the Raccoon River. We often see them in the Des Moines River. We are seeing them now in the Raccoon River and high enough today that they've made the decision to switch rivers to the Des Moines River, which is also a little bit of a challenge for Nathan and his operational folks over there to make that shift. But they are handling that beyond the Des Moines, and we'll kind of be monitoring that, see how big of an issue that becomes. Wanted to share that Melissa and I had the opportunity to tour Senator, our Representative Zach Nunn's staff, his chief of staff, through the treatment plant here, kind of one-on-one, and it gave us a great opportunity to share some of our challenges related to lead service line funding and harmful algae blooms, and a couple of topics that he's very interested in and wants more information on, and wants to see if he can help us find a path there for funding our lead service line replacement and see what we can do with harmful algae blooms. He actually worked for a representative from Florida where they have a lot of algae bloom issues, and so he's very familiar with that and is very interested and knowledgeable about that. And so that was a great opportunity to have some one-on-one time with his chief of staff. And the last thing, from a CEO comment perspective, we had our first lead service line replacement public information meeting. Was that this week? Last week, yeah. My days are blurring together. But last week, we're replacing 100 lead service lines in the Riverbend neighborhood, and we didn't have a big turnout, but there were the owners of 6 properties on the project list who showed up, and every single one of them signed up on the spot that they wanted to have their lead service line replaced. And so that's a good start. Several of them took agreements home with them that they were going to give to their neighbor or the person who couldn't make it or whatever. And so kind of off and running there, and hopefully we'll get some lead service lines replaced here this fall. That would be the end of my comments, Andrea, but I would direct the board's attention to the safety update that's in the packet today. This update focuses on our near miss process. We are encouraging folks to submit near misses or issues that they see, safety related issues. There's been a real focus on that. And so in the last few years, we've received a lot more near misses than we had historically. And we're focusing on trying to resolve those, or trying, if they are an issue that's actionable, trying to get those resolved. We had a goal of 77%. Dylan shares here in the memo that we're at about 88% resolution of things that are brought to our attention have an actionable piece to them. So that's a positive. We are at 6 injuries for the year, 6 recordable injuries. Obviously, we would prefer to have fewer, but 6 is probably in the ballpark for an organization our size in terms of an average across the country. 12 is about the average for a water utility our size for the year. We're at 6 here at the end of August. So,
what was our goal for the year?
I don't think we had a specific goal related to number. For years, Andrea, we targeted to be below the average, which was 12. And so when we started being below 12 on a fairly regular basis, we went to 6. And we made that once or twice, so we went to 3. And then we could never make 3. It just never worked out. So we've been focusing on this year. Our goals are related to safety training and getting the training scheduled, 100% required training scheduled, new employee training completed within 60 days. Another metric or two in there that are escaping me, but they're related. Our goals are related to safety training, but this is an update just to show you kind of what's going on with our near miss process. And while we always wish we would have more reported, those that are reported are getting some action, so that's a positive thing. So I'll stop there and answer any questions you have about any of that.
Questions or discussion? Okay. Well, thank you for including this. I appreciate seeing this information. If we can like flip flop between this as well as the goals. I know we share that information at the when you go over the strategic plan and where we kind of are, but that would also be good to see, maybe not every time, but like I said, every other time. That leaves us with the contract status and professional service agreements that are at the end of the packet. If there are no questions on that, I'll go ahead and take a motion for adjournment.
All I'll say, Andrea, is I appreciate your tolerance of having me on Zoom. It's worked out nicely. And just to rub it in, I got to go put a jacket on because it's 60 degrees.
Oh, wow.
Well, enjoy.
Yeah. Great way to end.
Yeah. Did you get motion to adjourn?
Second.
Sunday.
All right, there you go.
It's supposed to be really nice. And then hopefully good. September should be a great.
Wow.
You always have.
Yeah, this is-
Word is
I think
spreading.
you